I wake up to the same old fight, chasing shadows in the night. Promises made, but I let them fade. Caught in the cycle, I'm feeling betrayed. Round and round, I'm losing ground. Trying to break free, but I can't see. These negative patterns are haunting me. Nights turn to days, I'm losing my way. Thought I found peace, but it's led me astray. Chasing the high, but it only brings pain. The more I run, the less I gain.
Hey everybody, hey, and welcome to another session of Tarka Say It Again. Today, we're talking about the Friendly Island. Yes, I'm sure you're looking at my background. You see these beautiful water and rooftops and boats and mountains all behind me. And Sint Martin, or one might say Sint Maarten, is called the Friendly Island. While many people think it's just another Caribbean destination, this island has a unique story. So before I get into my trip and what I've learned, we might be interrupted with an airplane because they've been flying over since I've been sitting out here on my patio. This island has a unique story. It's divided between two nations, two governments, two cultures, and two official languages. Yet it's still one island where people live, they work, and they travel back and forth every day. So a little history. Sint Martin and Sint Maarten, they share the same island. The island was originally inhabited by the Arawak and the Carib people. We've heard that before European explorers, as they say, arrived. You had the Dutch and you had the French. And that was something to where my baby, she had to explain and break down because I forgot all about that during history and geography. But nevertheless, the Dutch and the French, they both claimed portions of the island back in the 1600s. And they signed this treaty, peacefully dividing the territory. Now, my key word here today is peacefully. Yes, they all abode here on this island, and they are, from what I've witnessed these last 4 days, they are friendly. They're helpful, checking, making sure you okay. And we weren't just in, say, the touristy area. No, we was up in neighborhoods, riding up and down these mountains. You could tell we was, as you would say, the hood coming from the States. You could tell we was in the hood in some of the parts, and then some parts it was like, whoa, this is nice. So this treaty that we talked about, the agreement endured for centuries, making this one of the oldest peaceful borders in the world. Did you hear it? Again, I said the key word was peaceful. It is the oldest peaceful border in the world. And the Dutch side, we got a chance to travel back and forth from the Dutch as well as the French. And the Dutch side, we call it Sint Martin. And the Dutch side occupies, they say, about 40% of the island. And it's the busiest commercial area. And its capital is Philipsburg. Yes, they take the US dollar. It is accepted almost everywhere. They take Visa. They don't take Discover cards. The official language is Dutch, but the English is spoken by nearly everyone, is what I noticed. They're famous for the nightlife, casinos. I saw casinos almost everywhere, multiple casinos, beaches, yes, beach bars. There's so many different beaches. I can't keep up with all of them. I know we visited the Governor's Beach. We visited the what is the Barbacool Beach, and I might be saying that wrong, but cool was on the end of it, Cool. You know, you got the Maho Beach, you got Kupakoy Beach. They even have a Nikki Beach here. It's so many different beaches, and they're all beautiful. You see the different colors, blues, in the water. And of course, they're also known for the entertainment. Now, one of those beaches I mentioned, the Maho Beach, you know, that's where your airplanes, they fly just overhead before landing. But we didn't stay too far from the actual airport. So you see them and you hear them just flying out and about. Now, the French side, that's your Sint Martin, and it covers approximately, they say, 60% of the island. Remember, it was 40% with the other. This side, 60%. And its capital is Marigot. That's your more relaxed atmosphere. And their official language also is French. But, you know, the English is widely spoken, of course. They use the euro. And I know I've seen that a lot on my receipts. But they're famous for the French cuisine and your bakeries and your cafes and your gourmet dining. And they have a lot of air markets and boutiques and marinas. So as we said, this was the more laid back compared to the Dutch side. But what I like, you have one border, no checkpoints, and we were able to go and come from the French to the Dutch side without having to go through the checkpoints. And what I found to be one of the most fascinating things about the island is that you can drive from one side to the other without going through the customs or the immigration. And that's what we did. Now, one thing I did notice, a couple of times we went down a few one-way streets because they signs are a little different. And before you know it, you want it, but you recognize it quickly. You know, it might be somebody standing on the street. They got a smile on their face, or they pointing or something like that. But it happened a couple of times to me. But again, we on the friendly island. Since being here, we've also had the opportunity to go to St. Bart's. We did have to go through the immigration validation, going to as well as from St. Bart. And we took a ferry. It was a 45-minute ferry. And when I tell you, we felt every bump on that ferry. That captain, listen, he drove that ferry like it was a speedboat. We felt every rock and bump and tilt. When I tell you, the waters was very tempestuous. But one of the crew members was saying, because we were going against the current, which made sense. And the ride back, it was a little bit more steady. The current wasn't as tempestuous. It was a much more smoother ride on the way back. Over there as well, you had your mountains. We got the opportunity to rent a moke. That was one thing. Over here in St. Martin, we rented a Hyundai. And for those of you that's been watching my story, I said policy is $1,000 for a deposit. Of course, you get it back after a few days. And when we went over to St. Bart's, that was another 1,000. And this all within the same time because we had to keep the one rental when we returned back from St. Bart's. So we had to pay another 1,000, but this one was for the Moke over in St. Bart's. That was more of a cutesy, vintage, pink, outdoorsy type ride. Put you in the mind of a vintage Jeep, and we definitely enjoyed that ride. It was a little adventurous as well, especially going up into those mountains, and it was like the tires was trying to make its way up the mountain. We made it back safely. It is plain, but it was definitely an enjoyable sight and experience to get a chance to go over there and compare it to St. Martin or St. Martin. Yes, it's definitely a little bit more on the high end. They say that's where the players play. But my key takeaway, because every time I visit another country or island, I want to always learn something because you have your different cultures, right? And sometimes we believe that differences automatically create division, but it doesn't have to. We point the finger when people are different or they do things different. Have you ever thought about that? That's their culture. That's what they were taught. How do you know that yours is correct? That's the key point. How do you know that yours is correct? This island shows that people can have different languages, governments, traditions, patterns, perspectives, while still sharing the same space. And that's a powerful reminder, y'all. Think about it. Our relationships, our families, our communities, we don't always have to agree on everything to coexist respectfully. And I'm always saying, you can disagree, but let's do it respectfully. Healthy boundaries don't always mean separation. They can also create peace. Just like the island, many families, they're divided by different beliefs. And that was one thing. We got the opportunity to go out on Sunday. We thought we was going to the mall, but we found out real quick that malls closed on Sunday, baby. You ain't doing no shopping. Not for that. Convenience stores is open. Like I said, families, they have different beliefs, personalities, experiences. And the challenge isn't eliminating those differences, it's learning how to live with them in a healthy way. That's key. Hopefully, you all got something out of today's session. As always, we're trying to teach, inspire. Hell, I'm trying to learn myself. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Heart Radio, Spotify, and YouTube. Have a good one.